All right. Welcome to another Humanization Project interview. I'm here with my friend BeKura. And I must say, we tried to do this interview a couple weeks ago, and then I got to know her even better. And so now I feel like I know the questions to ask to get her to really share with us about herself.
Yes.
So she kind of knows how this goes already, but we're gonna do it all again, and maybe get to some deeper things this time. So, like we did before, can you just tell us about yourself first?
Yes. Well, I'm BeKura Shabazz, and I am the founder and president of the Criminal and Justice Reform Network, First Alliance Consulting. We're not divided to Virginia, Moms Against Mandatory Minimums, and I think that's about. Is that all of my organizations? I think that is, for now it is anyway. And I have been doing advocacy work for about 22 years in the state of Virginia. Also nationally, not for 22 years, but for a while now. And I consider myself to be a multi-platformed advocate because all of these things really interconnect. And so I don't really believe in working in silos. I like to put all the pieces together so we can see how the dominoes fall and why we should, really address issues from a holistic standpoint. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Let's back up a little bit and get to you more as a person. Though, did you grow up around here?
I grew up in Newport News, Virginia.
And tell me a little bit. You have a really lovely family.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your family.
I do. I have 3 daughters, 2 that are biologically mine, and I think 5 sons, 2 that are biologically mine. And we are extremely tight. I love my children. They are a lot of the reason why I do what I do. 3 of them in college. Got a grandbaby on the way. Have a grandbaby already. And so we are just trying to create a world that is sustainable, especially for my grandchildren and great-grand and those that come after us and for everybody, and one that is, equitable and just.
Yeah. So yeah, you do a lot of work with criminal justice stuff, as you said, all your organizations. But you also, I learned recently, you also do some environmental work.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So you're doing all of this stuff, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that before we get more into the justice stuff.
I don't know which side is more controversial or brings me the most pain. I think they're probably equal, and that was what was interesting when I came over into the environmental sectors to find out how egregious things were on that side. Not only from the industry standpoint, but from the nonprofit standpoint as well when it comes to extortion of communities of color, impacted peoples. And so I do fight against, bad environmental policy, but I definitely would say that my greatest challenge is trying to get nonprofit organizations to understand why they have to be what they say they are instead of just saying that they are doing particular things in order to obtain grants. I do not believe in extorting communities of color or impacted peoples, and I will call people out for that.
That's really important.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you feel like the environmental work you're doing is really because of your children and because of
most
all
definitely.
that.
Most definitely. I do have a child that is disabled from, he has chronic severe lung disease, asthma. Another child that has exercise-induced asthma, and my oldest daughter has chronic bronchitis. And my little one has what they claim is eczema, but it's really some other type of autoimmune disease that is affected by climate change, extreme weather patterns, affects how his skin reacts to the weather, whether he's going to break out in hives or, it just really all depends, and we're always on like staff watch with him, and it's been that way since he received one of these vaccinations, and that's when I decided to stop with vaccination.
So we're here right now at John Tyler Community College, right?
Yes.
And we met here for a reason, because this is an important place to you. And so not only do you have children who are in school right now, but you yourself are in school as well, right?
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about how you came to be in school at this point in your life, and then explain what you're studying and why you're studying?
Yes. Well, I have always been trying to go to school and finish. However, economics did not allow that to happen to me. So I continued to go and try to, complete classes, and it just wasn't feasible until I got to a point where I am now denied financial aid. And so I'm having to pay for, schooling. But when my oldest three graduated from high school, and one of them has graduated from college, the other one's a junior, the other's a sophomore, the time just arrived where I was able to go back, and I'm taking full advantage of that. And it was interesting because the school was like, oh, you can't come, you're gonna have to pay for this semester, and it's gonna be like about $3,000. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to ever go back to school. And doing this work, to be credible, you have to have that degree. Mm-hmm. And then the most, I just worked it out that they had made an error, and they gave me an opportunity not to get my financial aid back, but to use my loans. But it came with, of course, a requirement that I take 18 credit hours, which is 6 classes, and I have to get a C in all of those classes in order to continue to even use my loan money. So it's not even like grant money, it's loan money that I'm having to be able to use because I did so poorly trying to keep going back. And I've taken full advantage of it. I have right now, I just found out last night, I'm back up to my 4 A's and 2 B's. And I am taking human services and criminology right now in this degree field at John Tyler.
And so you're going to use your degrees to directly contribute to your work once you get done, right?
Oh gosh, yes. And this program here, I am so thankful because I did not want to take a criminal justice degree field. I was like, I'm going to go liberal arts and social science. And even though John Tyler has a social science, I was meeting with one of the advisors, and he said, you would really be good in this human services. He worked with me for a while and, listened and talked to me. And he was like, I'm do what you want, but I know you would be perfect in this human, and you're going to. And so I just was like, okay, just put me in it. And it opened up a whole world on the criminal justice side that I thought I knew, that I didn't know, that exposed me to the police side of it. I had the law side of it, but I didn't have the police side of it. And oh my God, it was just so much like with theories and models that they use to substantiate why they do the things that they do, and that was my missing piece. And so I'm really thankful that my criminal justice instructor has been so beneficial to me here. So the Most High was really looking out for me when he was like, this is the path you need to go.
And so you're going to use this degree, and then you're going to get a law degree also, is that right?
Yes. Well, I'm going to transfer from here and go finish the criminal justice degree at Virginia State, and I'll have a double minor in sociology and public policy, and then I'm hoping to be able to get into Harvard Law School.
Right. But then you don't want to be a lawyer, right?
No.
I feel like this is really fascinating. So what exactly, tell us what exactly, because you've explained to me before, but it's really interesting what you're wanting to do. So you're not going to be a lawyer, you're going to be like, you're going to keep them all accountable.
Yes.
But explain it how you explained it to me.
I am going to be a justice advocate, to say the least. And so what I want to do is to be able to provide legal services to each sector, whether it's the defense, whether it's the defense attorney or the prosecutor or the courts itself. But what I really want to do is just safeguard due process. And I want to be the one who's in the courtroom that's watching the lawyers, both prosecutor and defense attorney, and watching the judge and the defendant. And if there is any wrongdoing, I want to be able to go to whichever side and be like, look, this is what I saw. We need to remedy this. If it's something that we need to do with legislation, we're going to have to hurry up and do that, but this can't happen. And so I want to safeguard due process and procedure and rules to make sure that it's equitable. It's extremely important to me that things be equitable, not necessarily equal when it comes to justice. And so that is what I want to be. I was struggling, like, what do I want to do? I don't want to be a lawyer because I don't want to be, really, bound by the bar. But I do need to know this law stuff down pat. I need to know exactly what they know, because you got to know what they know to be able to come after them specifically, and to basically finish law school, then that can't be discredited, even though I've been studying law for 22 years and I have their books in my home. I want to get that law degree and to be able to, start doing some social justice engineering in the courtroom.
Yeah, I think this is great. Like, our system is so complicated and has so many problems right now, and I think having someone like you there to help safeguard really everybody. It's not like you're just trying to look out for, only the defense or this or that. You're trying to just make sure that justice is done and that the law is followed, and that everybody is doing everything the best of their ability and
advocate for
correctly.
everybody in the courtroom.
Yeah, and I think that's really needed. It's almost like how our medical system has gotten so complicated. People almost need somebody sitting there when they go to the doctor to say, like, this is what was said, and this is, and so having you do that, I think you're going to be so much help to so many people. I'm so excited.
So.
Yeah. And so part of the reason that you do this work is you've had a lot of instances in your life in which you have had to navigate the criminal justice system, not just for yourself, but for some of your loved ones. And I think it's really interesting how you've explained your own dealings with what you've gone through as far as yourself in the criminal justice system. And so if you wouldn't mind, so most of the time on these interviews, I usually don't ask people about, any crime that they've done or even about them, going to jail or prison or any of that. But you, because you're doing this work, you're quite open about what's happened to you. And I think it would be good for people to hear, because I think your reasons why all that happened are very, very relatable in this day and age to people and what a lot of people are going through financially and personally and stuff. So can you tell us a little bit in your own words, however you want to tell us, about what had happened to you and how you ended up doing something?
And so I got my first run-in with the law pretty early. I had just turned 18. It was with somebody who had committed a crime that happened to be 17, and I was the adult in the situation, and I got, charged along with her. But of course, it was more forgiving on her side because she was a juvenile. And at that time, I didn't know as much as I know now, and I should have been offered a first offender program, and I wasn't. And so my crime was a crime of moral turpitude, which basically says that you will forever be a liar and a thief, and you can't be trusted. And I didn't understand the magnitude of that crime until I started to apply for jobs. And at 18, I had already had my first child, and I was denied jobs that I was qualified for, repeatedly, just over and over. And then I ended up getting married, had my second son. It was a somewhat abusive relationship, and I left. And my husband at the time, who had required that I quit my job when we were married, would not help me with my children. And so having to take care of my daughter and my disabled son, who was in and out of the hospital for long periods of time, I was not able to work. And the jobs that I was qualified for wasn't willing to accommodate my son's illness. So I had a bar with having a crime of moral turpitude, and I had a bar with having a child that was disabled. And so I moved to North Carolina to try to see if I could fare better in that area. And I ended up meeting some Colombians and some other individuals who introduced me to the world of white collar crime. And I've always been extremely intelligent and a critical thinker, and never thought that I would be using those smarts to commit crimes, but it was what it was. And so I met these guys, and they were like, look, you got an opportunity to, you make money, take care of your children. You won't have to, worry about working, and you can be very present. They knew it was important for me to be present and to raise my children. And that's how I got involved in white collar crime, and it provided a very posh life for me and my children. And when I started to get into that crime, doing that particular crime, I knew I needed to know the laws around it to protect myself. And to make sure that I was able to stay home, without going to jail with my children. And so that's what I did. And I was able to, navigate through the court system, which is not what we see a lot of today. And I'm not by, any means or stretch of the imagination encouraging people to commit crimes and just know the law. It's just something that I did because I was a single mother, and I knew I had to do this in order to make sure that me and my family stayed in the best situation possible. And, I still went in and out of jail, dealing with these crimes that I was committing. And I was able to see the inner workings of the system and of the jails, and you know, it was just, even though I was still doing advocacy work there, I had never been in. And so it was a different situation for me when I went in, and nobody cared about the fact that I had 2 children. Nobody cared about the fact that I needed resources to be able to work and to not commit these crimes. And I'm like, we're punishing people who are begging for help, who you're telling not to commit these crimes, but you still want them to pay rent, utilities, take care of the children, make sure the children get to school, but you're not giving them away. You're not providing those things. And so I dedicated my life, even though I continue to serve in that capacity, to, you know, educating myself and providing more information about this. And it wasn't until, and this is 18, it wasn't until I was 38 years old, 2 years ago, when I was offered the opportunity to be a fellow with this particular organization, because of my friend that had always seen me out here doing this work, gave me an opportunity. And I was so thankful for that. And I always tell people, all it takes is one opportunity for somebody to be able to show that they are more than what the system says they are. And we don't have that out here. And ever since that opportunity, I have taken off and have been doing this work. And not necessarily, I'm still not financially stable, but you know, I know that, you know, I just can't continue to do those things. And I know that, you know, the system at a certain point in time still not caring. It's like, we're going to give you, you know, a whole bunch of years. And so, you know, you just fare the best way that you can. And that's what I've been doing, and making sure that I am bringing this message out to the masses, that we have to change the way that we do criminal justice work in this state and nationally, globally actually. But, you know, the United States has 25% of the world's population incarcerated, and so obviously it's something wrong here. It's not a major issue globally, but here is something definitely wrong.
Yeah. And so a couple weeks ago we were at a weeks ago we were at a panel with the prosecuting attorneys for the Commonwealth's attorneys for Richmond and Chesterfield and Henrico. And I remember you saying to them, you know, as the prosecutors, you're perpetuating crime. Like, you're making it so that people feel like they have to continue doing those things. And I thought that was a really important thing to be able to say to them, for them to start to realize that the system is creating these situations in which people feel like that's their only option. And so I think that's really important for people to start to understand. Right. So, let's take another step back. And so you're doing this advocacy work, and some of it I think is really interesting. I know last week we were going to meet again, and then you headed off to a school to help a kid so that he didn't get arrested, right? Yes. And so you're constantly doing things like that, and I think that's really great. Can you just tell us a little bit about that situation, not about his details, but I think that's interesting, you know, what's really going on in our schools with the school to prison pipeline, and having the police in the schools, and things that used to be just disciplinary things for kids are now turning into actual crimes, which again is perpetuating the problem. Right. And so, if you want to just tell us a little bit about that. Sure.
Well, I received a phone call from one of my colleagues, and she's like, listen, something has happened with my niece. The police have been called out, and she's been expelled. She's been suspended from school with a recommendation of expulsion. And so I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. And so I get in contact with the parent. I'm, doing my investigation to see how I can best help this child. And so I go down and I meet with the parents, take the statements and things like that. And I discovered that this young lady had never been in a fight in school before, had very good grades, and has not had any disciplinary issues. And I was just really curious as to why there would be a long-term suspension recommendation. So I tell Mom, I said, look, schedule a meeting with the school for Thursday at 2 o'clock. And so that was when we were supposed to be meeting. And I'm so sorry.
It's totally okay. No, it's important.
Had an emergency. So I went down and I met with the school, with the parent and the student. And, it was just, what I saw was that this is customary. And so they don't do the full investigation. And I always say this about the system, is that it's one-sided. You don't do the investigation to find out where these people come from, what their background story is, what's going on. We just have a blanket problem-solving criteria, and we just throw it over everybody. And I was able to get the young lady back in school on a alternative suspension program. The fight that happened, she did contribute to the fight, which is it's understandable. Children fight. It's
Right.
not, it's not a huge deal like we make it out to be. People have been fighting since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
The Bible said they warred in heaven, so who are we to expect not to war on earth? But I was able to get her on an alternative suspension program, get her back in school, and to stop the long-term expulsion for the young lady. And the school was like, we didn't know, we didn't have, didn't look into it. And I'm glad that you had came down and took the time to come and sit with us. And we resolved it within 2 days. And so this work that advocates do, it's just so important. And when the system says that, oh, you need to have a lawyer, or you got to pay to get these services, which, we do have fees for these services. But when you're talking about lawyers, paying a lawyer, that would have very well been a $2,000 case. It's unobtainable, it's unreachable, we don't have access to that. And so, it really behooves me when the system says, oh, you need to have attorneys, Well, no, we represent society very well in our communities, and we should be allowed to continue to advocate in that manner.
Yeah, I agree. It's great. So you're constantly doing things like that. It's so wonderful that you're doing that. So, we'll back up even more. So tell me, you're doing all of these things for all these other people, and you're in school and doing all this stuff. But if you had a day just to yourself, to imagine like your most perfect day possible, what would you like to do if you were just having a day to yourself?
I would like to
or not even to yourself, like what would your perfect day be?
I would like to probably be in an oceanfront like condo somewhere with my children, just like doing nothing. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes, it would. Goodness
I'll get the
gracious.
condo
Just
next
the little
to you.
things, yes. Just sitting there.
Yeah. So all of these things that you do, what exactly are you the most passionate about?
Policy.
Policy.
I am extremely passionate about policy, because we can yell these things all day and attack these issues all day, but until we attack the policy that creates the issue, we're never going to alleviate it. We do ourselves a disjustice by saying, hey, let's fix this one situation that we may have, without changing the policy, because if we still have the policy, the situation still is allowed to exist when the next one comes up. So we have to attack policy when it comes to these things. And that's what criminal and justice reform does. We go through the code, we break it down, and either fully repeal and reenact things in the code to provide an equitable system that we feel serves everybody in the state of Virginia, whether you're rich or poor. And so I think policy is what.
And so you're up there when the legislature's meeting and talking to people and doing all that work, which is also amazing. Anything else you want to share with us?
No, just to get involved. Even the smallest things help us, whether it's making phone calls, sending out letters, donations, if you're in the rooms with people, name dropping, all of these type of things are extremely important. And to be intentional with your advocacy. A lot of times we have advocates that kind of straddle the fence, and I discourage that so much. You really, really, really have to walk in your truth when standing up for people. You cannot say, well, that's not how it's normally done. You got to either, I always tell my people in my organization, I'm like, either we're going to do this or we're not going to do this. Either we're going to go all the way in the pool or we're not going in the pool at all. We will not go on the steps. We will not go in the little 2 feet. We're going all the way down to whatever feet it is and getting entrenched in this thing. We have to do that when we're talking about humanity and people's lives. And I always, it just hurts me. I remember seeing when I was doing this particular court case, and the father got sentenced to prison, and the child just lost it. And I will never forget that day ever in my life. And I just don't think that people understand what they do to children when we continue to support, condone, and be complicit in liberally giving out incarceration time for even the smallest of crimes. I just can't, I have an obligation to these babies.
And that's one of the huge things that I really hope that we're getting across to people through the Humanization Project, is that it's not just about the person who did or did not commit the crime. It's really this ripple effect that affects their children, it affects their significant others, it affects their siblings, it affects their parents,
their
and
neighborhoods.
people don't consider that, and then the communities and everything. And so, you know, that's one of the things I hope people are starting to see when we're here talking with people like you, is that, you know, it really is a thing for our families and our communities and our society as a whole.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you for chatting again.
No problem.
Anything else?
Thanks for having me again. Oh, yes, one other thing. I always got to talk about this misconception that's out there about people like us that do this work, and they think, oh, you all want to let all the prisoners out of jail. That is not what we want.
Right.
That is the farthest thing from the truth about what we want.
Yeah.
What we want is an equitable and just system. We want a fair chance in court. We want the prosecutor to have what they need to do their job. We want the defense attorney to have what they need. They want the judge to be able to have what they need to do a job. We want them to be able to be human in doing this work that they're doing.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to say, oh, I saw something in this kid, and so I couldn't do this particular thing. Even though the system recommends it, can I find services for this child and pull them out? We want that type of system. And I forgot this judge, and I forgot where he is. It was an older white guy that he does that type of work, but we don't see it in the system enough.
Yeah.
We have to have a place where we allow humanity to come inside of our courtrooms, and we know that all the time when we get this, it's going to come out beneficial to society. But we at least got to try it, because I believe in my heart I have seen more good than I have bad in individuals.
Yeah.
And I also know that the bad that I've seen in individuals stems from either poverty, some other form of mental health, or it's cognitive, abandonment. You know, it comes from something. People don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I know what I want to be when I grow up. It's a criminal.
Right.
That's not what it is, but that we have a system that seems to believe that, and I want to dismantle that system. I want to give police what they need to have support,
Right.
to support the communities that they're on beat in. I want everybody to have what they need in order to show that we can love one another, treat each other fairly, and if we do fall by the wayside, that we are able to accept accountability for our actions and take the punishment, a just punishment, and come back and still be okay, and let that be a thing of the past.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was
Thank
great.
you for interviewing me again.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right.